Because one match that kind of came into mind was Effy. And probably the reason that kind of stuck to me is his promo to you. For him to say, you are the voice of LGBTQ wrestling at that promo. And that was a really fun match to see. But for Effy to give you affirmation of your identity as someone from the queer community, what was it like hearing that after the match?
It honestly took me by surprise because at the end of the match, I didn't know he was going to cut a promo at the end. I didn't know any of that. So at the end of the match, it happens. I get the 1, 2, 3. I get my hand raised and I hear Effy go, "Give me the effing mic." And I was like, oh no. I was like, did I make him nervous? I got scared. I got a little nervous. And then he was like, "Give me the damn mic." And so we gave him the mic. And then just to hear the words that he said and like everything that he said just meant that I'm going in the right direction, that I'm in the place where I need to be.
There is Devin Carter, part of, I have to say this carefully, Living in Fashion with Zakayla, because I got called out, so I gotta be careful saying that carefully. I was gonna ask that first before we delve into it. How, saying that specifically with Living in Fashion, how did that kind of like stamp yourself as a tag team with Zakai?
I think when we first started, we went by a different name, and the name that we started with really didn't sit well with some people, so we ended up having to change it to Living in Fashion. And when Living in Fashion happened, I think it was just both of us. We were both thrown into a tag team, so we really didn't know who we were as a tag team, because we know who we are as individuals, but as a tag team, we weren't really sure. And then the more we tagged together, the more that we felt like the groove of things and how well we meshed together. Living in Fashion was the elevated version of us. Now we know who we are. Now we know that we are the next level and we are expensive. So
how expensive? Now I'm curious.
Above a lot of people's pay grade. Above a lot.
What was the inspiration for, like, at least starting off with Living in Fashion? What was like your inspirations for, basically, it reminded me so much of like Madonna a little bit. Like, what were some of those inspirations that you had forming that team with Zakai?
Honestly, the inspiration that we really pulled from was just in the queer community itself as a whole, as a wrestling. I think for such a long time, I think queer wrestling and LGBTQ plus wrestling has been looked down upon in a way. I feel like it was mostly as it was someone to make fun of, or it was the comedy gimmick. It was a comedy spot for the show to get a good laugh in. And I think to people who've just been so in love with wrestling and so been in love with like trying to change the culture, trying to change everything before we change everything before we step foot into the ring. And we wanted to make that difference. And I think that's what inspired us. Of course, like, we want to give the divas the shout out because that's who we love. That's who we grew up with. Like Lake Pool, the Iconics, the Bella Twins, like some of the greatest tag teams like that have did so much for tag team wrestling as for the women. I think that's what we want to do in tag team wrestling for everyone.
Let's start at the beginning then, especially going into hybrid. What was the one motivation that says, hey, I will do wrestling? What was that one moment you're like, I'll do this wrestling thing a shot?
So that's it's a funny story because honestly, I've always been in love with wrestling ever since I was a child. My dad and my grandpa always took me to like the local wrestling shows. So like RCW here in San Antonio was a show that I used to go to as a child. And so like now being able to wrestle on it, it's pretty cool. And so like in 2019, my dad passed away. I wasn't doing anything that I liked. I was in college. I was going to work, but it didn't keep me invested. And then when my dad passed away, we didn't have the greatest relationship, but the one thing that kept us together was wrestling. And that was always my favorite memory with him, was wrestling. And so when he passed, I was like, I'm not doing anything with my life that I'm happy with. I'm not content with what I'm doing. The one
Mm.
thing that I've been happy with my whole life and something that's always been there for me when I was in like these low stages of my life was wrestling. And so I was like, okay, from June of 2019 to January of 2020, I want to like start hitting the gym, start working out so I can prepare myself to become a wrestler. And then in 2020, January of 2020, I decided to join the Hybrid School of Wrestling. And ever since then, I've been with wrestling. I've done wrestling for the past almost now 5 years.
Mm.
And I'm so thankful for everything that I've accomplished, all the opportunities that I've gotten, because honestly, it hasn't been the easiest, but the journey has been so fulfilling. And the thing that keeps me going is making sure that I'm making him proud and giving a show to my grandpa, because my grandpa now watches me and comes to my shows
Aw.
and watches me wrestle. So it's a full circle moment that he was able to give me this enjoyment of my life when I was so young, and I get to bring that enjoyment back. And it's a great feeling.
Was there any reservations from anyone from your family that's like, oh, he's doing wrestling? Like, were there any initial reservations as you started to really learn the ins and outs of the business?
For sure. Like, definitely, my grandpa was I want to say like the only person who was like, that's so cool. You got it. You can do it.
Oh, okay.
But I want to say like my mom, of course, my grandma, they were more like, are you sure you want to do this? You know how things go. Like, do you think you can handle it? And I was like, I don't know, but I mean, what am I waiting for? Like,
Yeah.
the only opportunity is now, so why not take it? And of course, like my mom tried to talk me out of it as I was training and as I was progressing. But I think the longer that I stuck with it and the more I stayed with it, opened her eyes that I was really serious about this. Because when I was growing up, I would do sports. I did basketball, baseball. I did a little bit of boxing and karate, but I never really committed. I did it for a
Right.
season or two, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm bored. Next thing. And I think that's what her reservation was towards wrestling, because she didn't want me to invest all this time just for me to not do anything with it. And so then eventually, when it started becoming more serious to me, I think that's when it opened her eyes. And like ever since then, my grandpa, my grandma, and my mom come to every show that they can make. They're always there with the biggest signs for me. And
Aw.
honestly, like they're the reason why I'm continuing doing this, because they have invested so much time, so much money, so much effort into my wrestling that I can't stop now, and I won't stop now.
Because when you started training, because you have Coach Marvel, Don Juan, and Sho Funaki, and especially training under someone who's been in the big stage with Sho Funaki and also with Don Juan and Coach Marvel. What was it like learning the ropes of just learning your move set as you started training over at Hybrid?
Honest, it's I want to say I took. I don't know. It's hard because all three of them are such great coaches
Mm.
individually, and together, when they're all together, it's even more magical and more. I don't know. I'm just so in awe of them because of how smart they are with everything. Like I want to say with Don Juan, he helped me so much with my character. I don't think if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be the character that I am now. He was able to show me that I can be silly, I can be dumb, I can embrace all the jokingness of wrestling, at the same time be that serious character at the end of the day.
Mm.
And then like with Marvel, he's the one who taught me the moves, who taught me when I wanted to try a move out that didn't go as well in my head, he made it sure that it was perfected, and he helped me make sure that all my sequences, all my footing and everything in all is perfected. And I really like thankful for that, because if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have made it this far.
Mm.
And then like from Shofunaki, like he's such a smart and intelligent wrestler, and I love picking his mind because he's so smart about the little things, the in betweens, how to work the camera, how to work the crowd, the psychology of it. When I have a match, Marvel and Funaki are the first two that I go to because their ring psychology is out of this world. They're thinking of things that I would have never even thought of my own. And I'm so happy that when I'm able to have these matches or do a match and I did something that they created, it puts a smile on their face, which makes me happy because I know that I did what was what needed to be done. Or like I put their vision on paper and I'm glad that I was able to fulfill that.
Because I'm curious, because like what was your original foundation for your character, and how did Don Juan kind of really solidify to what you're doing things in the ring right now?
So I don't know if you know like much about like Don Juan and like all the characters that he's played over the years of his wrestling.
I love those, every single one of them.
Yeah, they're all crazy. They're all over the top in their own. It's crazy because they're all over the top in their own way, but they're all individually different characters.
Right.
It's crazy. But when I was watching wrestling when I was younger and I would come to these like live shows, the person that drew me into wrestling was Don Juan, but it wasn't Don Juan as Don Juan. It was Don Juan as Andromeda was the first person that opened my eyes that someone like me can do this.
Mm.
And watching his character thrive in such an era of wrestling that kind of gimmick, that kind of character isn't fairly looked up upon, and him thrive made me think like I can do this one day. And then maybe 10 years later, I'm doing it. And so like Don Juan's definitely like helped me out like with being more comfortable in the ring, being more comfortable in front of people, and if something goes wrong, roll with it because at the end of the day, the fans don't know I messed up until I show that I messed up. And
Mm.
like I think that's where the character work comes in because in those little moments you can use that character to play it off rather than just get frozen in time.
Yeah.
And like anything that I do with character work, make sure that Don Juan's the first person that I run to because he's so good at what he does. And like he's the one that made me more comfortable. When I started wrestling, I didn't get comfortable until I had my match with him. And everything just fell in line with my character work. And now I think that I now I think I have such good character is because of him, because of
Mm.
everything that he taught me.
Because I was going to ask that too, because the matches that I've seen so far from you, you have so much snark. I loved it because you can be a jerk and the crowd will put you over just for that moment. How has that been such a flexible thing to do if you do turn into a face, which we'll talk about with the Inspire Pro later on, and being a heel, getting the reactions from the audience? How has flexibility been such a good factor into how you're crafting into that character in the ring?
I think the flexibility goes. I think a heel and a baby go hand in hand. Of course, like you see all the matches, the good guy, bad guy, good beats evil. Evil sometimes cheats to beat the good. I think it's a good in between because I feel like the best baby faces are even better heels,
Mm.
and I think that I'm so because I wouldn't say that I'm a great baby face, but I want to say that I'm a good baby face. I know how to get the crowd going. I know how to get the crowd to feed me that sympathy that I need so that the crowd isn't quiet for when we're wrestling. And I
Right.
think at the end of the day, whether you're a heel or you're a face, it's all about that crowd interaction. Because if you don't have any crowd interaction, then you're not really getting your heat. You're not really getting your sympathy. And
Mm.
everything that I go through as a baby face, I know how to switch it into being a heel because I know what it's like to want that sympathy and get it taken away. So as a heel,
Yeah.
I want to give them that sympathy, and right when it's in their fingers, I want to snatch it away from them.
Do you think it's easier being a heel than a babyface sometimes, or it's an equal weight being both of those, being both a babyface and a heel?
I think I think it's harder. I think they both have their pros and cons on like what's harder and what's not. But I
Okay.
think it's harder to be a babyface because not everyone can gain that sympathy from the crowd. Not everyone
Mm.
has that charisma, has that uniqueness about them to get that sympathy from a crowd. Yes, you can get like cheers and like claps going, but are they really focusing on what you're doing? Are they really like biting their nails, hoping that you can get to the rope or hoping that you can kick out right before three?
Mm.
And I think with as being a heel, there's so much you can do to get cheap heat. As a baby face, there's not much you can do. There's not much you can do unless you rely on the heel to get that sympathy. So I think it's all on the heel to like be the one to like to direct the crowd.
Right. And the work that you're doing leading up to your debut, and what was it like finally applying what you're doing things in the ring coming into that debut? And do you remember what that match was?
Yes. So that's so funny that you bring up my debut match because it was against my good sister, Zakai Living. Our debut match was against each other, and funny enough, I was the heel and he was the babyface. But it's hard because as we're going through and training and trying to get this down and trying to learn and understand everything that is being taught to us, I don't think I really understood what I was doing until my debut match with Zakai in the ring.
Uh,
Because you're going to have people, because we have training matches all the time, but training in front of people who you work with every day isn't going to be the same as having a match in front of a live audience.
yeah.
And I think the difference is like when we were having these practice matches, they were telling like they would give us critiques like, "Oh, show more character here, show more, do more this there," and I'm like, that makes sense to me in my head, but I don't have a crowd to play off of that too. Yes, I have our students, but at the end of the day, they know I'm a bad guy or a good guy, so they're gonna get
Mm.
behind. They know their role. As a fan, now I have to realize they don't know who I am. So how am I going to get them behind me if I'm the heel or the face? And I don't think I really understood like all the mannerisms, all the little critiques of like showing your character until I got into the ring for the very first time and had my debut match with Takai. And then that's when I was like, that's what you're talking about. This goes here, that goes here. I do this at this part in the match. And I'm like, everything started clicking. And then ever since then, I've always applied what I've learned, and now I can see like what they mean by that.
From being basically rivals with Zakai Living, how
Yes,
did
sir.
your friendship and your relationship form over time leading into Living in Fashion after that debut match?
I want to say I think our friendship thrived after that. Like we were already close enough before our debut match, just because we
Okay.
were both a part of the community, and at Hybrid we were the only two. So of course we're gonna naturally like cling together, and we were friends, but we weren't the closest of friends until we had our debut match. And then ever since then, we've been each other's like partners since then. Like he's helped me he's helped me pull stuff out that I would have never thought I could, and I bring out the best in him. And I think when Living in Fashion formed, we finally realized that we bring the best out in each other, and now like we do everything together. Like we travel together. Anytime we go somewhere, we're together. We make sure we're okay. Like our friendship, I think, is like the strongest that it's been in like since we've started. So I'm
It's
glad. Like
interesting.
I oh no, you can go.
What's interesting too is, and we're going to talk about going back to character work. How is it different being in a singles division to someone who's your tag team partner in that division? How did that character work lessons that you've applied to, and how did that finally kind of gel when Living in Fashion started becoming a thing?
I want to say I think
Because
as a si-
I'll say this, I'll probably put some more context because oftentimes, like in singles matches, like you're one person, But when you're starting to work with someone in the tag team division, it's two different personalities. And it leads to my question where how much of that character work has basically been applied to what you're doing working with Zakai? That's probably a bit more solid question than the previous.
I want to say, for me, definitely being in a singles is totally. I want to say being a single star is a lot harder than being in a tag, than being a
Okay.
tag star, because being in the singles, of course, everybody loves being in the singles because at the end of the day, the spotlight is on you, and because now you only have to worry about yourself as a single star rather than having someone there with you. At the end of the day, I'm going to make sure that my opponent and then I look good. But now in the tag team, now I have to not only know when it's my turn to shine, but it's also knowing when it's my turn to step away from the light and have Zakai step in and have his moment. And I think that's where we gel so well is because I don't think ever since we started living in Fashion, I don't think we've ever I don't think we've ever had to be like one person's overpowering the other. One's outshining the other. I think me and Zakai know each other so well from how long we've been training together that it just comes naturally to us that our gimmicks or our styles might not be the same, but when we're in a tag team together, our mannerisms are the same and we're just on sync. And it's really crazy be in a tag team with someone who you don't have to talk to for them to understand what you're doing.
Okay.
Because there's moments in matches where me and Zakai get lost or say something doesn't go awry to what we have planned. The moment we look at each other, we know what's next or we know how to get back on track. And it's crazy. And it's sometimes like we don't even have to say anything or look a certain way. We just need to look at each other and then we're like, okay, we know what's next or we know how to get back on track. And I think once you have that connection and once you have that connection with someone that you feel comfortable in the ring with, I think you thrive better as a tag team.
Okay. Because I was thinking about that too. Because now you're out of hype. I mean, you're still working there, but to branch out. Actually, instead of doing United first, I was thinking about RCW first. To be someone who's watching those shows growing up, to now wrestling in that promotion that you watched as a kid. What was it like working at RC after watching it for so long with your family?
I think it was such a surreal moment. It was a nerve-wracking moment just because I watched RCW for maybe like 4 or 5 years, and then I had to take a break just because of like school and everything. And then if it wasn't like the whole reason why I found RCW or Hybrid was because of RCW. Because when I reached out to RCW and I was like, I wanted to become a wrestler. And they were like, if you want to be a wrestler, go to Hybrid. They're the best school in San Antonio. And I was like, okay. And then ever since then, I've been with Hybrid. But of course, since Hybrid works so closely with RCW, we do the ring crew, we do all that, we do the setups for them. So like even being a part of the ring crew before I even started wrestling was such like a fulfilling moment because I know everything backstage. I know all the behind scenes need to get credit for because they are what make the show. And so like doing ring crew and all that made me feel like I was a part of the show without being on the show. And then I became a manager for Brandon Weiss and Richie Garcia. And becoming a manager, it was such a surreal moment because I would have never thought that I would be a manager. And then here I am playing that role. And everyone hates me because we're bad guys. And I feel like being a manager was such a cool moment in my career because I was able to understand and like see wrestling up close rather than seeing it backstage or like on the side. Now I'm front row ringside watching two people who've been doing this for 3 or 4 years longer than I have and getting to learn from them. And then finally getting the moment, okay, we want to put you on the show. And then finally I get to wrestle and it was such an awesome feeling to actually like be out there and do something on there rather than just managing. And I felt like when I first got that moment of wrestling, I didn't know how to feel. Like I was so overjoyed. I was nervous, scared. I didn't know
So
how
many
the fans,
emotions running through.
yeah, I didn't know how the fans were going to react. And then the moment I came out, nothing but cheers. And it was just like such a heartwarming moment for me. And then winning the RCW Future Legends title. So then to become a fan, to be a manager, to be a wrestler, and then finally to be a champion of a promotion that you watched for so long, it was such a full circle moment for me. And then to have that moment where I won the championship against not only someone who I looked up to in the wrestling business as Don Juan, but to have Sho Funaki as my special guest referee and having him
So cool.
raise my hand at the end of it while streamers are getting thrown in the ring. And like at that moment, I was on top of the world. I couldn't help but just stop. Like I couldn't help but cry. And like I would never forget when Funaki raised my hand, he put his head next to mine and he goes, "It's your time. Go be a star." And like
Ah.
that like meant the world to me. And I just remember, like, not only that, but like when I pinned Don Juan, he goes, "It's your time now, champ." And like hearing that
My gosh.
hearing that right before the three happened broke my heart. I'm like, this can like, it was just like you said, like full of emotions, happiness, sadness, all in between, like everything that I worked hard for came through. And it was such a
Wow.
full
I'm tearing
circle
up right now.
moment.
I am like welling. My eyes are welling right now. Oh my goodness. And to have that too, because not only you have your singles championship run, but working with United 210. And when Stash was like, hey, you know, I'd like you to be in United 210. And not only that, because you've done your stuff with Zakai Living, let's do a be part of that tag division over at United. What was the handshake like with Stash coming into United 210?
It was it's hard to like this it's hard to explain because like Stud Stash is just one of those people that you just meet and you instantly love. Stud Stash has such a big heart and he cares for so many people, and I think that's what led me towards him because of how welcome he was at the RCW shows. And then getting close to him there and getting to know who he is and how much he loves wrestling and how much he wants San Antonio wrestling to grow and Southside wrestling to grow. When he reached out to me and Zakai and wanted to use us, the first thing we said was yes, of course. Like, if we're gonna make a
Why
tag
not?
team, yeah, why not? Like, if we're gonna make a tag team division, let's make a tag team division, and what better yet to have two of the biggest like baby faces in San Antonio be a part of that division, whether we're a part of the main storyline or we're a part of the side storyline. We want to make sure that your vision and whatever he had planned for us comes through. And I'm so thankful that Stud Stash and Rob have given us the opportunity not to only wrestle for their promotion, but to be champions for their promotion because they've done so much for us. And like, I'm so thankful for like everything that they've done.
Because I was going to ask that too. Now that you mentioned being United 210 tag champs, let's do the first time because you are a 2-time tag champion over at United 210. When I always say this to whoever is a champion, when both of you, when you and Zakai had the pin, and when the announcer says "and new," to have this work that you're working, to have this effort and partnership with Zakai, what was it like getting those belts with someone that you've worked with so well over the years?
It was just everything that I feel like all of our trials and tribulations, not only as a tag team career, but also as our individual careers, all came down to that one moment when we got that win. And I just remember like the first time we won that championship, I just remember crawling to the Kai as we were getting announced as and new, just hugging him and embracing him and crying. Like we were just both crying on the floor as we were getting announced as new champs. Cause like everyone wants to be a champion, but to actually become a champion and to be a face of a division of a company is so like means so much, because not only do you have to be the best, but now you have to prove that you're the best. And I feel like it's a lot of weight on our shoulders to show that we can keep up with no matter who you put us in the ring with. It shows that everything that we've done before this is meant for this moment. We rose to the occasion. We fought for our spots on this show. We fought to be here in front of the crowd, and to have that moment of being a champion in front of the crowd was everything.
How different was it getting it the second time?
I don't think the only difference, I want to say the feeling was the same, because when we won, again, I ran up to him, gave him a big hug, and we just started crying as we're getting announced as new. I think the only thing different as getting it a second time is now that we know what it's expected to be a champ. Now we have to, everything that they saw before, how are we going to top that? How are they going to see something new? And I think that's why I love working with Sakai so much, is because we both, definitely him more, but we both push each other to try new things, to do new moves, to get out of our comfort zone. And like, we're always willing to put our best foot forward. And I'm glad that we're both on the same page with that.
Because one thing, especially because I was thinking about, again, we'll talk about that with Inspire later on, to have each of your title defenses, how much has pressure kind of really got you to really keep going as a champion, whether it's in the singles match with the Future Legends or with United 2-0 with Sakai with the tag belts and the Inspire Pro champion. How has pressure kind of played into improving yourself as a wrestler?
I think I want to say it brings the pressure a lot, because being a champ means you have to be the best that you can be at all times. I feel like if you falter as a champ, then it shows that you really can't, I don't know how to word it. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to think. I feel like the pressure definitely becomes more is because like they know what it feels like. Everyone knows what it feels like to chase after something they want.
Right.
But not a lot of people know what it feels like to actually grab what they want and what to do with it. And I feel like being a champion shows like you can have this uphill journey of trying to get it. And then once you finally get it, it's like, how do you keep it?
Right.
How do you keep the fans invested to where you keep winning your matches, or you keep having these matches that the fans are invested in? So what's the difference between your last match and your next match? Are they going to see something different, or are they going to see the exact same thing? And I think that's why I love training so much as I do, is because I'm always trying to think of new moves. I'm always trying to think of new combinations. I'm always trying to think of what they see in my match and what do they like? And out of what do they like, how do I change it so not every match is the same formula?
Because you're mixing everything up, because each title defense, even though it's a match, there'll still be differences that would make each of those defenses unique, basically.
Mm-hmm. The opponents are different. The scene is different. The crowd is different. Like, everything is different, and you need to know who your opponent is, because if you don't know who your opponent is, then you can't prepare who you are in that match.
Right.
And I think that's another thing of it, is like just knowing who you are as a wrestler, and then knowing who you're wrestling is also a key component of being a champion, because how do you adjust to fighting people you've never fought before, people that you've never trained before, people that you meet an hour before your match? How do you adjust to all that? And I think being a champion shows that you're able to work with anybody and everybody, no matter where they are on their level of like wrestling, no matter if their character works well with yours, because at the end of the day, you're going to make sure you find a way to make sure that y'all look good, or y'all complement each other in the ring.
Because now we're finally at Inspire. We're finally at this point in our conversation. We're hitting Inspire. I'm going to talk this with Sash too, where What was the handshake like with Biss and with Max saying, "Hey, why don't you join us here wrestling here in Austin?" And what was it like working something that's past San Antonio's borders?
I wanna. It's crazy because I've been a fan of Inspire for a while, and I've never really gotten an opportunity to go to one of their shows.
Mm-hmm.
But I had Roland, who is the photographer for Inspire. He's
Mm-hmm.
luckily enough one of my closest friends, and they actually needed an extra person for a match. And Roland was the one who reached out to Biss and Max and be like, "Hey, I have a guy that I would love to put on your show if you could give them
Okay.
the opportunity." Luckily enough, Max and Biss somewhat knew of who I was. And they were like, okay. Biss messaged me and was like, "Hey, are you free this date?" I go, "Yes." And we're like, "Okay, we want to see what you can do. It's going to be a multi-person match." I was like, "Okay, thank you for the opportunity." Ever since then, my relationship with Max and Biss have been great, have been amazing. Those two, I owe a lot of my success now to them
Mm-hmm.
because for the longest time, I didn't get comfortable or I didn't get confident in who I was as a wrestler until I got to Inspire.
What was the moment when that made you click as a wrestler when you started working matches in Inspire?
What clicked was honestly being backstage.
Okay.
Being backstage with everyone is when it clicked because I'm so used to, like you said, Inspire was the first show out of my hybrid or out of the San Antonio limit. And Inspire was the first show where I didn't have someone from hybrid with me because I'm so used to someone else being from hybrid being booked on the card with me. So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I have some kind of comfortability with someone I know. Yes, I know the boys and I know the boys in the back, but I don't train with them every day. I don't know them personally like I know the people I train with. And for Inspired to be like, "We want you," and only be me, I was nervous because I was like, I don't know if I can live up to wrestling with all these great athletes that are on this show. I don't know if I can compete with them. I don't know anybody backstage personally. So like literally right before my match, right before I had to come out, I was shaking. I was
Uh,
so nervous. I was shaking so bad. I was like, I don't know if they know who I am. I was like, I don't know how the crowd's going to react to me. I don't know if they're going to, I just don't know. This is the first time I've wrestled in front of this crowd. I don't know how they're going to perceive me. And I just remember Roland being backstage behind the curtain with me and he goes, "You're a fucking star. Go prove to them why." And
mm,
I was like, okay, thank you. I needed that. And then my music started to hit. I started to get in the zone. And as soon as I hit the curtain, the crowd was there with me. And I was like, okay, I'm here. And then I come to the back. I talk to Biss and Mac and they go, "Thank you so much. We loved it. We're going to keep in contact." And luckily enough,
mm.
they kept in contact with me and they kept booking me. And because of them, each time I came back better than what I was the last time. And it's been a crazy ride that I've been at Inspire. Like honestly, like everything that I've gotten, everything that I've fought for, I never would have thought it would happen. And so like to be where I am now, it's like I'm so blessed and so thankful.
Because one match that kind of came into mind was Effy. And probably the reason that kind of stuck to me is his promo to you. For him to say, "You are the voice of LGBTQ wrestling" at that promo. And what was like hearing it for the first time? Because you went through a gauntlet too. That was a really fun match to see. But for Effy to give you affirmation of your identity as someone from the queer community. What was it like hearing that after the match?
It honestly took me by surprise because at the end of the match, I didn't know he was going to cut a promo at the end. I didn't know any of that.
Oh.
So at the end of the match, it happens. I get the 1, 2, 3. I get my hand raised and I hear Effie go, "Give me the effing mic." And I was like, oh no. I was like, did I make him mad? I got scared. I got a little nervous. And then he was like, give me the damn mic. And so we gave him the mic. And then just to hear the words that he said and like everything that he said just meant that I'm going in the right direction, that I'm in the
Mm,
place where I need to be. And like I am so forever thankful for like Biss, for Max, for anybody else backstage at Inspire that like get to that helped me get this match. Like I owe it to them because before my match with Effy, I was in multi min matches. I was like I don't like to go from to go from an 8-person ladder match, then to a gauntlet match, then to a triple threat, and then my first ever singles match at Inspire to be with Effy. Like it was so surreal. I've been a fan of Effy for such a long time. I met him when we went to Dallas, and my first ever meeting, like the first time ever meeting him, like he made me feel welcome. He made me feel loved, and ever
mm,
since then, I've just grown to appreciate everything that he does for our community, everything that he does for wrestling in general. And then for him to say that he would rather face someone like me than anybody that getting these big contracts, and to say that I'm the future and I'm the face of the community meant like so much to me. And I'm like so thankful because like I didn't think I needed to hear those words. And I'm so thankful that it was Effie who was the one who gave me those words.
because now with the Inspire Pro, I'm gonna ask this differently. Because of course, being wrestling in the gay queer community is, I wouldn't say small, but there is a small niche with the community, and we have Anthony Bowens. We had in the gay community, we have Tegan Knox and Nixon Newell, who is in that community too. To have the Inspire Pro Championship, and how can you enlift and support the gay queer community now that you're a face in Inspire? How will you be able to say, "Hey, I am in this community. This I am the champion of this." How can you be able to support and enable that community who's trying to figure out their lives and seeing a champion and fans saying, "Hey, oh, he's like me," or "They're like me." How can you uplift them in that community?
How I just how I want to uplift everyone is I just honestly when I came into wrestling, my whole thing is that I wanted to be the change. I wanted to
Mm,
be the change for the queer community in wrestling because for so long, like I said before, we were looked apart. Like we were the comedy acts. We were to get laughs. We were to be the side character. We were to be not taken seriously. And as I've gone through wrestling and how met so many people through my wrestling career, I've
mm,
always felt like I've never been in a locker room where I felt unsafe. I've always felt
okay.
comfortable, and I wanted to bring that comfortability everywhere I go. And then once I got to Inspire, I got nothing but like warm welcomes, big hugs, like I
Mm,
can't believe you're here. And then to go from multi-night matches to marquee matches with Effie, then to be in the triple threat match to win it, and then to finally have the title. I want to show not only to the queer community, but to the wrestling community as a whole is that we are here and we're here to make a statement and we're here to change the world of wrestling. No matter what's going on politically, no matter what's going on in different areas of the world, the queer community is here to stay. And if you don't
mm,
have a problem with that, then that's something you have to fix on your own because there's nothing wrong with what we're trying to do. Why do we to be the comedy joke, the comedy act, but yet you get to have everything that you want? Why can't we have the main title? Why can't we be the face of the promotion like Inspired made me? And I want to show that to everyone. And I want to bring up everyone in the queer community. Don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to speak up for your beliefs and what you want to accomplish in wrestling because I feel like if your voice is silent, you're never going to be heard. You're never going to move. And I want to show that we're here to break glass ceilings, and I want to push through, and I want to make sure that I'm someone that people can look up to and be proud of.
And there's legitimacy now that you have the Inspire Pro Championship, and there is legitimacy to a lot of the community because basically you're like, hey, I have the belt. I'm representing not only Inspire, but for the queer community because there is legitimacy in that community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to, there you good. But yeah, I just want to bring, like you said, I can't even say the word right now. I'm so sorry. But I just want to bring this, like, the seriousness into it and, like, make sure that people see that just because what we do behind the curtain, behind closed doors, doesn't take away from what we can do in the ring. Because I can tell you, I probably hit harder than some of the boys in the back. And, like, if you don't think I can handle my own, then that's on you. And I'm here to prove it to anybody who wants to have a match. Like, I can handle my own. I'm not afraid to have a match with anybody, regardless of who you are. Like, I want to show that I can compete with the best. And I did that with Effy. I did that with Stephen Wolf. I did that with Cadence. I even did that with Danny. Like, those are some of the best indie talent that Texas has to offer. And at the end of the day, I was the one who got the job done. And, like, I stood my own with those amazing, talented people.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring this up too because we had this conversation with Stan and with this, and I have to find your number because that is so hard to do. Let me find it here. Hold on. There we go. The Texas Top 100. So you're number 21. And again, we'll talk. This brings up the legitimacy of how you're doing things in the ring. When you heard your name was called, kind of close to top 20, but let's just say like within the top 25 of that Texas Top 100. To hear your name, how much has that been such a big boost in your career, not only as a wrestler but as a person?
It's honestly given me a big confidence boost, not only because from my peers, but it's also from the fans. And, like, it just shows, again, everything that I've worked for, everything that I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into is finally coming into tuition. And people are finally seeing all the hard work that I've been able to do. And I'm glad that I'm able to show to not only you, but to the fans and everyone watching that I am someone to be reckoned with. I am someone destined for more because I feel like I'm on that road for more. I don't know when, but I just feel like everything that I do with all the accomplishments that I've been gaining, being a part of being 21 out of 100, that's crazy. I didn't think I was going to get that high. I wasn't expecting to get that high. And then to be 21 out of all of the other however many wrestlers are in Texas, to be 21 out of so many, like, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm actually being seen as a wrestler. I'm being considered top competition in wrestling. And I'm glad that, like, my name is getting out there because at the end of the day, that's what I want. My name getting talked about. I want to be on everybody's list of people to wrestle, top 25, top 100, top 200. Like, I was, 120 something on the queer wrestling insider list.
That's right. Yeah.
So to be so high on both lists is like, it's a crazy accomplishment. But now I'm excited to see what's next. Where can I be next here?
Which I'm gonna ask. What are your plans moving forward? With the year still being fairly new, what are your goals and aspirations 2025?
My goals and aspirations for 2025 is honestly just to travel more, to get out there, to get out of Texas. As much as I love wrestling in Texas, Texas is so small compared to everywhere else. And I feel like once I conquer Texas, I can conquer other places. And that's where I mostly want to do, is I want to travel and I want to prove to myself that I can make it out of Texas, and I want to travel to California, Florida, Las Vegas. I want to go overseas to Japan. Like, I want to get out there and travel as much as I can because there's so much to learn, and I'm wanting to learn from all different types of people, different styles of wrestling. I think that's what like my biggest goal is, just to continue learning, but also travel and to get my name out there.
This was fun. Thank you so much, Devin, for having you on. And last year, as I was watching a lot of like Inspire and watching how you're doing things in the ring for this year. This was an interesting conversation because we never really talked. We were just like, hey, hi, hello, bye, out the door. So
Yeah.
to have that conversation with you and understanding and looking through how you're doing things in your career. So I finally got a better understanding of how you're doing things in the ring. Now that this year is on its way, like honestly, all the success in what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll end our conversation with this. So if you're in the same room as a young Devin Carter at an adolescent age, what would you like to talk to him about?
I would like to talk to him about, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak up about what you want in life. Don't be afraid to speak up about all the indifferences that you're going to face. Let everyone know that your voice is heard. Be heard. Don't be afraid to chase after your dreams. I think the biggest thing after wrestling was start sooner. And if I could go back and tell him, I would just tell him to start sooner, because you'll realize that everything that you've always wanted and dreamed for is going to happen. Just got to believe in yourself and make it happen. Don't listen to what the outside has to say, because at the end of the day, they don't matter. My well-being, your well-being matters. And if they have a problem with that, that's on them. Live your truth, speak your truth, and you'll be fine.
All right. I have nothing left to give. You have the floor. And where can we find you?
You can find me on all social medias under the Devin Carter.
So for those who are listening, tuning, watching on all of the streaming platforms, thank you so much for tuning in on this episode of the PGTK Podcast. And we're on to the next one. Bye.